I got a question from Barbara about leprosy in the Gospels, of interpreting that and what it would mean. We know what leprosy is as a disease, but what would it mean on the template if it's an analog? How do we determine what it is? That's a tricky thing. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Her comment was here. I see how the Old Testament stories are metaphoric with progressive growth. Okay, and she's commenting on a video that I just posted showing the monomyth and showing just some common bits through there. It's so huge it would take a long time to go through, but that she is looking through and seeing what I'm doing and showing where there's repetitions happening that are kind of hard to see, but we will interpret them. Okay, then she went on and said, curious about your interpretive breakdown of leprosy in the New Testament. Okay, so what I want to do right here, first of all, is say that if you look right here, I've got on this list Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I checked John. John does not have leprosy in it. So it only appears in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. In Matthew, leper and leprosy, both, if you just call that one word, it appears 5 times, 3 times in Mark, 5 times in Luke. Actually, that breaks down specifically. Leper is said 4 times in Matthew with leprosy 1 time. And then respectively, we have 2 and 1 and 3 and 2. So I'm not quite sure, except that I know that the 5, 3, and the 5 are going to be good numbers from the earlier analog grid. Let me pull that up right here. Everybody see this? If you know what's going on, you're on board. If not, I can only say it's very big. The analogs that we're building, the numbers that are going to be repeating throughout the Bible, is exactly these ones right here. The Eden 7 repeated 3 times. That references a conscious and pure inner self state. I'm not going to, in this video, let's just try to look at the numbering system. From there, all of these numbers have been gathered up in analog forms in a certain way that you'll have to look at other videos to see. And if you take these numbers right here, these are the numbers, if you look through the Bible and go, boy, there's a lot of numbers repeating in there, aren't there? Here's your pile right there. Those are the numbers. The 2 in the entire Bible is repeated 835 times. I've got the numbers down here, the 3, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, the ones that we have. The 16 numbers are repeated 3,973 times. I couldn't get a count of 70. 70 is quite a bit. So it's going to be well over 4,000 times. Just these 17 numbers have been repeated. That's why we see them all the time. They mean a good thing. If we get to numbers like 8, 13, 21, they mean a bad thing. Now, does that make sense to anyone? This is really old code. What is Genesis? Like probably 5,000, 6,000 years old. Yeah, it's very old stuff. But they're doing it in word repeats. And the reason we can't see it is because we don't know it well enough. They were able to, they had the story memorized, number 1, and number 2, since they lived with it, they knew how many times the nouns and verbs were repeated. We don't know it that well. I'm only finding this because I'm using the computer. So to that end, let's go take a look at leprosy in the Gospels and look at a few things. First, I'm going to just let's go to Matthew, and I want to show you those numbers and how we're going to verify that Matthew belongs right here with this material and that it's using that same grid system hidden in the background. Somebody knows something. This is not just a plain story. Let's take a look. Okay, here I have Matthew up, the King James Version. Remember the number that we have there, the 3s, the 7s, and the things like that? What I'm going to do right here in Matthew, King James Version, is just take a look at something. Watch if I look for 3. It shows up exactly 12 times. It's repeated 12 times. So that comes off of our list. You see there we've got a 3 and we've got a 12. This has been developed in Genesis. These numbers have been developed in Genesis. They're being repeated all throughout Abrahamic material. What was the other one? 7. "12 times. What about 12? 12 times. Okay, let's keep looking at a few other ones. This is going to continue to emerge. They're not going to continue to use all the numbers. If I were to say, for example, we go 13, there's none there. If I were to go with a 40, 40 appears too. Yeah, when he fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he hungered. Oh yeah, this is just before. This is when Jesus is in the wilderness. Okay, anyway, if you come through here, if I just start looking at other things, let's go to the top of the document right here and take a look at something. Look at the son of David. I've done this before, but let's look again. David. 17 times. That's one of our numbers. That's how many times Sarai's name is repeated. What about Abraham right next to him? Exactly 7 times. You see what they're doing? They're not just making a story. They're putting a code in here. What about Jacob? Six. That's an interesting one. Those numbers go back to Babylon. Judas should be a bad thing, so it shouldn't be one of those numbers. Judas should be like an 8 or a 13 or one of those, shouldn't it? Judas should be the one that steps beyond. Judas would, the 8 would represent first sin or life experience, moving on, a bad thing. We are now losing our childhood innocence. I'll leave that out now. It's thick. But Judas, we know in the story, is a bad thing. So if we look it up here, 8, there we go. We go from 7 to 8. 8 is the exact same day that Jewish boys are to be circumcised, isn't it? Yep. We need to cut off the things. I'm going to just go through a few more in here. Wilderness. Jesus went into the wilderness, didn't he? Wilderness exactly 5 times. Judea. Is that a good place? Judea, 8. Nope, that's a bad place. Now Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. Now this is really important. You might read the story and go, no, it's a good place. It is a good place. So the important thing is understanding that when you get to the template, it doesn't mean Judea. It means something as an analogous term. And that is going to be good or bad. Don't think about it as the physical thing. Think about it as if you're translating it as an analog. Is it something that is going to be beneficial or detrimental? And in this case, it's telling you a direction that is, probably not a place to come from. It's really a pathway in life. So you're moving along. Wise. How many times is wise said in here? We get out all the other ones that are wise itself, 17 times exactly. This doesn't astound me anymore. I just look at it kind of matter-of-factly. It used to just blow my mind. Now it's like, oh yeah, I see what they're doing. I've looked at it enough to see it. Virgin, exactly 4 times. That comes off our list. All right, so I'm going to look at the document right off the bat and say that when I look at this, then I look at the numbering system and the pattern of what I have going on, and I'm very confident with the numbering system that I have then. So if I'm coming up with a 5 there, I guess the thing to keep understanding is, leprosy, we know it's a bad thing. It's not just skin. It's very debilitating. You can Google pictures on it. People can still be afflicted by it. It's still something you can run into. But, it'll eat flesh, bone. It's a very bad. So that was something that was happening back then that they had no cure for. So it would have been something that was being utilized as an analog. However, is it being used in what way? Once they translate it, we know if we go to Genesis that naked, you go, oh, naked and drunk. Boy, what did he do that for? Then you see how many times the names are repeated and go, okay, nakedness is a good thing and drunk was a good thing. Okay, that's the spiritual. That means when you interpret the analog, you make it, they're good things. Being drunk is not physically intoxicated. It means having a good feeling, a new feeling. We'll see it in Jesus' work. We're putting old wine into new wineskins doesn't work. We have to put new wine into new wineskins. They're still utilizing that process of these mean something in the psyche. They're not about real life, wine and wineskins. This is my life, my experience. I'm the wineskin. Wine is life. So when we start looking at the interpretation of how they work, we have to do the same thing here with this. All right, having a debilitating disease doesn't sound good at all. So how is it going to work here if those are indeed the numbers? And I'm not quite certain if that's what there is. So what we have to do now is let's go see, I'll just jump to Matthew and let's go read where it appears. We can just quickly jump right to them using the computer and see what they sound like. The interpretation process, before we do that, let me do this. I'm going to step to one verse in the Gospel of Thomas from the Nag Hammadi library and do an interpretation process comfortably with everybody observing right there. And then that is the process that we're going to use here. I have a Gospel of Thomas on my computer from the Gnostic Society library. I've got that downloaded here. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of things. But first of all, let's do something. I'm going to show you something here right off the bat. All right, we've got stone 5 times. We have to be careful with this because it was not translated by people who knew the template was there. So there might be things that are not in place. Let's look at a couple of different things. Fires 4 times. Let me try 3. 4 times. Let me try 4. That's 20 and 4. 24. See, that should not be compound. That usually should be a 20 and a 4. Those are translational things we would have to do. 20 is twice. Okay, what are we going to do here? We want to have a field. Let's find... That's repeated 6 times. Here we are, verse 21, and it's repeated 4 times right here. So, all right, just to stop and reflect on that for a minute. It was fragmentary. There's some things that would be missing out of here. It can't be reliable. But if I go through and I search for numbers like that, I see where there's like ones that are really lined up. They're perfect and they sound right. And then other places where it's like they're off 1 or 2. And you think, well, this becomes unreliable because of translation and because of the fragmentary nature of the papers when they found them, the scrolls. They were pretty in bad shape. Gospel of Thomas wasn't the worst of them. Probably the dialogue of the Savior, things like that, took a pretty bad beating. But anyway, okay, so right off the bat, I would look at that and say, I trust that as an Abrahamic document nevertheless. Even though I can't follow it, the translation of it exactly right, I see enough of the vestiges of that numbering grid system in the background to go, yeah, they were using it even though it didn't quite survive. There's enough of it there, you know it was there. Okay, let's go back and read that verse now. And I just said that to say, you know what? This is good stuff. It's good Abrahamic material. They're following the same pattern. Whoever's in the background that is teaching the template, but putting it on different shells. And if I were to use proper verbiage from antiquity, I would say putting it in different arcs or different paths leading outward. Okay, 21. Mary said to Jesus, "Whom are your disciples like?" Okay, that in a verse like this, that's a setup for the lesson. Now Jesus is going to speak, and when he speaks, that is the lesson we have. They are like children who have settled in a field which is not theirs. When the owners of the field come, they will say, "Let us have back our field." But they will undress in their presence in order to let them have back their field and to give it back to them. Okay, so this is an interesting one. The disciples, we have to understand if this plays out in the psyche, that disciples are going to be our qualities, our sense of fairness, our sense of balance, our sense of love, our sense of whatever they are. These are the things that rule us. If we're not in charge, they're the things that, it's not just like a good and a bad angel on his shoulder. It's like you got a head full of angels that are saying you should do this, you shouldn't do that. This is the right thing, that's the wrong thing. It's not all about good or bad. Sometimes there's a lot more complexity to it. It's making the right decision even if it isn't the best thing for you, for your feelings. Things like that. So the disciples are going to be your inner qualities. Think of it in fact like this, where we've got Judas Iscariot that is going to betray us, that if this is a part of us, represents our fears. We all want to do something, but there's a part of us that steps in and says, nope, you don't. And depending on what myth or religion you get it from, it might be portrayed in different ways. But in this case, what we see is, why would Jesus pick 12 people and have one that isn't really on board and isn't making it and still does wrong? Why? Yeah, that's a part of us that we can't get rid of. It's always there. We have to overcome it. Mary said to Jesus, "Whom are your disciples like? What are they like? What are your inner qualities like?" And he said, "They are like children who have settled in a field which is not theirs." So what this represents is our early selves, all of our qualities. We are like this. This is an analogous one. He said they are like children. So there is, okay, the disciples are now like children. Yeah, what are those? Our children. That's our inner qualities. Settled in a field which is not theirs. We've settled in a life that we don't want to live. We came from there and we're living through it. And when the owners of the field come, they will say, "Let us have our field back." And we will undress in their presence in order to let them have back their field and to give it back to them. Undressing in their presence is being able to strip off the pain, the shame, the hurt, all the things that we cling to, the ought against our brother. We don't get our life as long as we hold those things. We live through those things. This is teaching us to self-heal. Therefore, I say, if the owner of a house knows that the thief is coming, he will begin his vigil before he comes and will not let him dig through his house of his domain to carry away his goods. Okay, this represents the idea that we are understanding that we're triggering. We're growing. I'm the owner of the house. This is my house. This is where I live in my head. I know the thief is coming. I know that I'm going to get triggered. This happens. Damn it. I don't want it. But I'm adult enough now to realize that even though I say I'm sorry, I won't do it again, that it still happens anyway, and I have to take a different course. I have to understand there's something core that has to be gone after. I will begin his vigil, and when this triggering happens, I'm going to recognize that it's happening. I'm going to start putting myself in the driver's seat of these life experiences instead of going along for the ride. I'm going to recognize that I'm cyclically acting out in some manner, and I'm going to make preparations. You then be on guard against the world. Arm yourself with great strength, lest the robbers find a way to come to you. For the difficulty which you expect will surely materialize. Yeah, shit's going to hit the fan again, isn't it? Let there be among you a man of understanding. Okay, when the grain ripened, he came quickly with the sickle in his hand and reaped it. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. When something emerges, take care of it right away. Don't just let things grow and fester and fester and fester. Okay, so that is the technique. So I'm comfortable with all of it being Abrahamic sourced on the template. I'm also comfortable with utilizing it back and forth as teaching material then, regardless. If you interpret it at the level of template. If you're not going to interpret at that level, they're not going to be compatible. As religions, Gnosticism and Christianity are not compatible. At the template, well, that's all religions, isn't it? And at the template, they're all compatible. Let's cease to be dividers. All right, back to Matthew, King James Version, and let's go through the Gospels and take a look at those, and let's read up on leprosy and what a leper is, how the stories work, and see if we can't come to terms with something. And we'll use the numbering system that I'm finding as well. Okay, so I come over here and search. In this case, just for anybody else that's doing it on your own, if I go through here, I will see that there are slept are in there as well. What I want to do is put a space in front, and that could be leper or leprosy. This covers all 5 of them. So right there is all the search I need to do to find the 5 occurrences. Now here's where the first 2 are. What happens? It's in chapter 8. Chapter 7 was the completion of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus just completed his pivotal teaching, and we get into chapter 8. He's coming down from the mountain, and great multitudes of people followed him down from the mountain. And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, "Lord, if you will, would you please make me clean?" And Jesus put out his hand and touched him and said, "Yep, I will. Be clean." And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, "Don't tell anyone, but go your way. Show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony unto them." And that ends the story right there, the first 2 places that occurred. Okay, let's talk about that just for a second. Really not much to it. The oddball thing to me is, okay, so there's a leper there that just wants to be healed, And we're going to see kind of similar stories somewhere where he's done teaching and a woman touches his robe from behind and is healed, and he turns and looks. There's some things like that going on where we need to understand what those are going on. And they will yield to analysis. Okay. What happened here, though, is that Jesus went ahead and healed him and then told him to go his way, but don't tell any man, but show yourself to the priest and offer up whatever Moses told you. Offer up this as proof. And you're like, well, what was Moses' gift, and why don't you tell anybody about it? Who's the priest you're supposed to go see? Yeah, there's something that's kind of strange there. Okay, that's that for that one, the first two occurrences. What it sounds like, though, that the man had leprosy and he got healed. So, good to go. Just don't tell anybody about it. All right. Let's move on to the next occurrence. Let's see. It's right here. It's in chapter 10. He gave the disciples power. All right, so here Jesus is talking again and telling them, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely you have received, freely give. Provide neither gold nor silver. So he's telling people to go out and gather up people and to just cleanse the lepers, heal people. Okay, that's all there is to that. The next occurrence is down here. It's in chapter 11, the next chapter. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospels reached to them. Look at over here. Heal the sick. Sick, cleansed, yeah. Okay, so this looks like a do it. It was done, perhaps. And then down here we have one more, the last occurrence, chapter 26. All right, now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of every precious ointment, and poured it on his head, and he sat at meat. And what happens through this story here is that the disciples saw it, they thought it was waste. The story goes on. It actually doesn't talk about Simon the leper at all. It just references Simon the leper. It doesn't say whether it's good or bad. It doesn't get back to the story. What happens if we look for Simon? Simon is 9 times. So Simon isn't an evil thing, but it's not a good thing. It's like a transitional thing. All right. Well, all right. Let's go on then to, actually, before we do, let's make sure we refresh our memory on those. Okay, so the first one, leper shows up, says, please heal me. Jesus heals him, tells him go on his way. Don't tell anybody, but go show the priest and, brag to them as proof. Okay, so then the next time it was, you go here and heal the lepers, among other things. And then the next one did heal lepers and other things. And then the final one was simply the announcement of Simon the leper, just, mentioning that there, and then nothing good or bad about it. It's just like a title or something. Yeah. Okay, so let's now go to Luke and see what we have there. This is, make sure I got the right place here. Okay, so I'm going to say Lep up here, and it starts off actually right, and it looks like chapter 4. Yeah, we are into chapter 4. We're into Jesus' ministry. He's been baptized. He has spent his 40 days in the wilderness and faced temptation and is now underway. And the first appearance is here as he's moving along. And many lepers were in Israel at the time of Eliseus the prophet, and none of them was cleansed, saving Naaman the Syrian. All right, I know what this is. It's going to take a little bit to get into. So I'm going to tell you to look for repeated things that just sound a lot different, something that you're going to go, really? It's that again? Yeah, it is. Many lepers were in Israel. And I will say that each time you read something like this right here is material for who? It's written for somebody specifically. They put themselves into it. If I were to look at Israel up here, let's find out, is Israel good or bad? 12 times. All right, this was written for the Israelis. If you were in Israel, if you were somebody who grew up with this material and this was yours, you would be you would be Israel. You would be Israel. This is for you. As this is a guru package handed to you, you become Israel on the template. And the children of Israel are your qualities, your inner characteristics, your inner being. What do we have down here? We have, where was it? Lepers. There we have it way down here. And many lepers were in Israel at the time of Eliseus the prophet, and none of them was cleansed, saving Naaman the Syrian. So there's a pure quality in amongst a bunch of lepers in the house of Israel, in Israel. What's that going to start sounding like? Straight up, when you put it together, this would be the same thing as in the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish, all the early gods that were raucous that had to be destroyed. We're going to have to do some healing here. Instead of destroying bad gods that are noisy, we have to heal lepers. But I tell you of a truth, many widows. Did I get to the first one? You know what? Let me go back to searching from the wrong word here. Okay, there were many lepers in. Yeah, there we go. I was in the wrong place. I'm sorry about that. And many lepers were in Israel at the time of Eliseus the prophet, and none was cleansed. Well, I guess I was in the right place. Okay, we get to the next one then. The next occurrence. And let me stop for a second. That's different than the other ones. The other two didn't have that element up front. It started off right here with this. So as they get going, Jesus gathers up his disciples, gets underway. They get down here, and then we get down to verse 12 here. And it came to pass, when he was in a certain city, behold, a man full of leprosy, who, seeing Jesus, fell on his face and asked him, saying, Lord, please, can you make me clean? And the Lord put out his hand and touched him, saying, Yes, I will, be clean. And immediately the leprosy departed from him. And he told him, Don't tell anyone, don't tell any man, but go and show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing according as Moses commanded. Go offer up something for your cleansing as Moses commanded, for a testimony unto them, for proof of, something somehow. All right. So that one does sound like the beginning of the other two. It just had that one in the beginning where many lepers were in Israel at the time of Eliseus the prophet. Okay, then we get down here and we get into, this is chapter 7. And let's see what's going on here. And the disciples of John showed him all these things, and John said, come look for another. And that same hour he cured many of their infirmities and plagues, the repeating cycles of illnesses. You're resolving a lot of issues of evil spirits, and unto that we're blind he gave light. We're opening our eyes. And Jesus answered, said to them, Go your way and tell John what things you have seen, how you have seen the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor the gospel is preached. So in this case, Jesus is telling the disciples to go out and tell everybody how they observed all of these things happen, and lepers was just included in the group. And then down here, the last occurrence. And as he entered into a certain village, there he met 10 men that were lepers, which stood far off. And they yelled at him and said, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said, Go show yourself to the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. They left. As they left. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, and with a loud voice glorified God. And he fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And Jesus answered and said, Weren't 10 cleansed? Where's the other 9? So what it says is that they are not found. Whatever it was that was healed, they didn't stop and give glory to the Savior, to the Savior, to God. Save the stranger. And he said to him, Arise, go your way, and faith have made you whole. Okay, that's the last occurrence there. Lepers which stood afar off, the 10 lepers. Interesting. Okay, what's 10? Oops. Exactly 10 times. Interesting. All right. Well, that should be a surprise. Should not be a surprise. The leper story was different here, though. And what is missing? There's also one missing. The Simon the leper. The story is in Luke, but who's there then? It was. It's in Luke chapter 7. All right. So here it starts in chapter 7, actually. It is in chapter 7, verse 35. But wisdom is justified of all her children. Actually, it starts at 36. And one of the Pharisees desired him that he would eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house and sat down to meat. And behold, a woman in the city, which was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at meat in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment, and stood at his feet behind him, weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and he did wipe them from hairs. Okay, so the same story is here. There's more detail in it, but it doesn't say Simon the leper. It just says one of the Pharisees. So there's a variation to the stories right there. Is it critical? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so what did we have there then? That one is a little bit different. Mark and Matthew were fairly similar compared to Luke, which had some variation to it. All right, you got to reach deep for this stuff. Inward, it's a difficult transition to make. So I'm looking at that first occurrence here in Luke of Israel being full of lepers, except for one pure one. I look at that as, okay, then your life early on is full of all of this bad, except there's a part of you that's like, nope, I'm going to move on. There's a called person in this group right here. That's the hero that's going to go on the journey. It's not a hero's journey in this case right here. It's an element that you're going to look at that is nevertheless something that has the potential to represent accurately and analogously in a mental hierarchy if you were to play it out in the mind, making that transition that we're doing right now. Okay, and it falls in line with other stories that in the beginning there's a lot of corruption. There's a city, there's something has to be destroyed. The world, the city, somehow something is bad and it has to be wiped out. And in this case, what do we have? Israel, myself, full of lepers, except for one good element. Then you move on and you got the same thing where there's one after presumably a teaching, I don't know in this case, but there's one that comes and says, please heal me, and God, or Jesus does, but then tells him, don't tell men about it, tell the priest, and make sure to demonstrate, I don't know, there's something going on right there. Don't tell men, I'm not sure what that is. It's a thick one right here. And then there was the final one there where there were, what was it, the 10 standing off on their own that wanted to be healed, and then he said, go tell the priest. So here we have an element again, go tell the priest. What is it you're supposed to go tell the priest? He healed the first guy, told him to go tell the priest. Here he's healing 10 of them and telling them to go tell the priest. However, one of them turns back and thanks him. And it doesn't say that he doesn't heal the other ones. He just thanks this guy and wonders where the other 9 were that didn't seem to appreciate the healing. But he told him to go on his way then as well. And let's see. What did he say here? It was, where are the other 9? There are not found that return to give glory to God save this stranger. So one person here, that was going to be the Samaritan, right? He said unto you, arise, go your way, your faith has made you whole. That's a little bit different. Your faith has made you whole. You don't have to go tell the priest. You can go your way. Your faith has made you whole. See that variation? All right, watch this next one. I'm going to hit this yellow area. And when he was demanded of the Pharisees, when the Pharisees told him, hey man, when is the kingdom of God coming? He answered them, said, it doesn't come with observation. It's not here nor there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. And he said to the disciples, the days will come when you're going to desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you shall not see it, of your own purity. And they shall say to you, see here or there. Go not after them, nor follow them. Okay, this is telling us to not follow people, but to turn inward. The kingdom of God is within you. Don't follow men. That's thick. Okay. That doesn't answer our questions about the lepers, though. I just wanted to throw that in because it is important to do what we're doing right here, because it's telling us the kingdom is here now. Don't wait for it. Don't observe. Don't try to figure out when it's going to happen. It's here now. We learned that in other material, but okay, that's why we're doing this. We're trying to interpret what there is something in here that we're supposed to find out. Okay, so in this case, yeah, we've got different stories going on then. If I was to look at them simply, I could say that obviously there's some variations. That one that starts out where Israel, it was, full of lepers, except for one good one. That one right there that one stands alone. That represents your early self that has the lepers there. Okay, then we have the story where the one wants to be healed, and there's healing, and there's faith that makes it healed. But you look at that and go, all of this is happening internally. So it's really a part of us saying, you know what, I've got something wrong with me. I've got a habit, I've got a belief, I've got something that is just not okay. And I need resolution from this. So we work together inside of our mind to think it through and find a way to extract ourselves from it. And that's what that healing happens there. Now, as far as the telling or not telling it, I don't know that part, so I don't want to try to adventure that one yet. But I'm saying that as far as analogs, these are things that we need to be healed from. The final one, or the other one, was there will be lepers, go ahead and heal the lepers. And then there was another one, tell everybody all the healing you've seen. But the other one that was actually similar all throughout was the one where actually there's 2 times where it says going to the house of Simon the leper in both Matthew and Mark, but in Luke that is changed to the home of a local Pharisee, and they're going there to eat meat. Okay, what does this represent? This is not a real home. This is going to a place inside of your own mind. This is a healing process. This is a place that I have inside of me that is a habit or a belief or a pain, a shame, an embarrassment, somehow something that is trapped away that is like, God, this is my nemesis. I hate this about my life. It just really is bad. That's the house right there. That is either that Simon's, the leper's house, or the Pharisee's house. We're going there to eat meat. We're going there to consume what there is there. And while there, the inner self, the woman with the alabaster box, comes and is paying homage to Jesus there. I'm going to anoint your hair with oil and wash your feet and dry it with my hair. And this is where it comes out in Luke, where it comes out in the end in the 747 part, that she who loved much, all of her sins were forgiven because of the love. This is letting us know that we need to become, instead of this hate, the shame, the hurt, the things like that, we have to somehow find a way to convert that energy from what it is into something different. Because the energy, the emotion, the way we're holding the emotion is what we're living through. If it's shameful, that continues to emerge. If you can heal from the shame, you will no longer experience the shame anymore. So that's what that part right there is teaching us at the level of template. I think I covered it all right there, except for the part where it's like, don't tell the priest. Oops, I said that wrong. Don't tell men, but go tell the priest. And then there was that time in the end where there's another clue in here. This is just, we're going to have to think about this and see what happens. This is going to require another video. 10 of them are healed, and they're all told the same thing. Don't tell men, but go tell the priest. 9 of them go do that, while one of them stops and says, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And he tells that person, you know what? Your faith has saved you. You're free to go. He didn't have to go tell the priest anymore. What's that variation right there? There's a lesson in there that is old code. We got to wrap our brains around it. We got to become more than a fly on the wall in their world. Let's go look at something real quick here in Matthew. Priest. 28. That tells me a priest is a bad thing. The chief priests and the scribes be killed and be raised again the 3rd day, suffer many things. Priests. These are like Pharisees, scribes, priests. These are the people that are the blind, that lead the blind. These are the people that teach, honestly, they teach the carrier shell as if it is the truth, not knowing that there is something nested inside of it. The people that find the inside of it are supposed to know that there's clues and things all around here that we pull ourselves back from, and it's all a mental trip. It's not a physical trip, it's a mental trip. So somehow we're supposed to what? It almost sounds like, and before I move on, let me wedge this right in here. Think of this. You're told a story in your modern day, a hero story about going off on an adventure and crossing a river and, defeating the enemy that is trying to take your land and all this kind of stuff. And you create it on a template, a pattern that would make sense to people and go, man, I can live this. Now, think 5,000, 6,000 years ago. That's what they're doing. We're not there. We are so far removed from here. We have to know it's not easy for us. Don't tell, but to tell the priest, don't tell men. Men is not about the physical world. It's about, I don't see how this one works. I don't. I'll have to put some time to it. They're doing things different down here in the Gospels that I haven't spent as much time with. I don't know the Gospels nearly like I know Genesis, and I'm still stuck in Genesis with a few things that are kind of mystical to me. I'm still trying to link that with Babylonian stuff, which is very incomplete. So I'm struggling with that. But in using the same process in that numbering grid, I can pull it here and go, yeah, I can see that what I have is intact enough for this to reveal something. So that's it for now. I think that there would still be more work to be done in that area where it's like, don't tell man, go tell the priest. What does Moses want? Moses is looking for righteousness. After the flood, God keeps a covenant with him. Go read go look when God, it's either, I think it's chapter 8, 9 maybe, in Genesis, where God tells him, I keep a covenant with you 7 times. That is repeated right there. The covenant is the pure state. What are we looking for? We're looking for pure state. That is what we are going to, if you want a proof of how it's working, how do you feel? Does it trigger anymore? Nope. You good? Yeah. You let it go? There you go. We're looking for the kingdom of heaven within, and that entails resolving the things that are the hell that we bring with us, that are the life that we've accumulated. The lepers in our heads. Sound weird. The monsters in our head, the creatures in our head. When we're the man of the tombs, all the swine, all that stuff, they're all going to really point to the same thing. Okay, at the level of template. Outward, how many possible ways? Create stories on this concept. That's what we're looking at right here. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I probably shouldn't spend a lot of time in the Gospels until I get Genesis taken care of, because I see how pivotal that numbering system is throughout all of Genesis, and it's established right there. But it came from the Babylonians, but the Babylonian material is incomplete. The Genesis material is complete, so I think from there we could probably reverse engineer it a bit up into Babylonian works, but then certainly it would be detailed for everything that's in Abrahamic works, at least as far as the Holy Bible is concerned, Jewish and Roman material. The Quran, I think so. I don't have a downloaded copy of that, and frankly, I don't have time. It's just too much. It's too big. All right. I hope this was helpful. Questions, comments? Let's see you in the next video.